Welcome back, everybody, to the No Clue Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Casey Catala. Today, we're talking with my good friend, Joe Pingtella. He is a budding entrepreneur building his own company. Today, I really am excited about having him on the podcast because he is a person who has an extensive experience in corporate, a strong corporate background, and has just recently branched out on his own to start his own company. And his company is called Crisis Guard Pro. We talk a little bit about cybersecurity. We're going to dive into that kind of stuff. So welcome, Joe. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Share with us, one thing I'd like to start with is, how did you make the decision to jump from your corporate position into your own company?
Sure. Well, first, Casey, thank you for having me on your podcast. I really do appreciate it. Very grateful for you to invite me on your show. To answer your question on, what was the pivotal moment that solidified my decision? Over 28 years of working in corporate America, doing consulting work for many large companies, and watching how decisions are being made at the executive leadership level and are indecisions being made, especially when it comes to right and wrong and how the company's directions are going to go, whether it's a financial decision, a strategic decision, how operations are going to be conducted. The role that I played at the companies, I got to see and hear all of those aspects of how a company is built, maintained or not maintained, and then how, which direction they go to look for success. And what I found out was that, at the leadership level, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. There's no difference between you and me. And those people were there, whether they were there a long time at the company and they just know how the company works, or they've moved around a lot and they've had different roles and responsibilities, and they were deemed the right person based upon what their experience brings. What I found out was that, leaders are really hard to find. Good leaders are hard to find. Mm-hmm. When you're dragging people in your organization, whether they're kicking and screaming, it doesn't bring for a good culture of the company. And I think many decisions are made nowadays based on what's the bottom line look like instead of what does the vision of the company look like. And it's really hard to work for folks who lack vision and to go through the continuous ups and downs and layoffs and seeing really good people who are doing great work at the company go because the new leadership that came in wants to go in a different direction, and then all of a sudden the company falls apart. And the customers aren't being serviced the right way. The internal folks at the company, they lose their excitement as they once had when they first came in the door. My experiences with that have been very extensive to see going to a company that treated everybody like family, only to have that same company hire in new leadership and everybody was just a number. Mm-hmm. It makes it really difficult to work in those types of environments when you came in and you were experiencing a culture that was exciting to be around to something that was very detrimental and very stressful on not only you, but on your family as well. So my feeling was, I like what I do. In fact, I enjoy what I do in risk management. I just don't enjoy working for people making decisions over me that I don't think bring the right vision for the company and direction that the company is going. So after 28 years doing what I do and knowing that I can do this without having a W-2 on the end of my name, I can do it with a 1099 and be even more effective and get my points across and help those people who want the help. The opportunities are there. And I think, I'm just as good as the next person. It's just a matter of how I apply myself and the excitement and how long I keep that excitement along the way. And I'm just determined to never take a no. There's always opportunity out there just based on what I've been through in my 28 years, what I had experienced in the environment that I had to be around. I had to make my own way and make my own roads for myself in my career. And I figured if I'm going to do that for somebody else, I'm going to do it for myself.
Yeah. I'm curious because there is always a catalyst that, Lori Holter.
Sure.
I just interviewed her, and 20 years ago, she went out on her own in PR. Kind of different. Not that she had great leadership. She had this drive to do things her own way. But how long, when you said it was a family, it kind of had a really good culture, and it was kind of like working for a family. How many years was that? And then how many years was it where the leadership came in and just kind of turned people into a number? How many years was that?
So I started the company. Let's just say the first year was great. New leadership came in right after that, and within 6 months, it was just totally different kind of company.
Okay. So for a long time,
Yeah.
you worked under that. And I haven't experienced that in a long time. It's been a long time since I've been with corporate,
Yeah.
but I do remember a sense of frustration and red tape and just talking things to death. I mean, I feel like in corporate, you take the simplest thing and you just talk it to death. And no decisions are made. And then someone steps up and goes, this is clear. Let's do this or that or this. And it just takes forever.
True.
Yeah. So tell me about how it went down, because I know your wife. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very successful woman. Tell me how that conversation went when you guys talked about it, and said, "Hey, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go out on my own."
Well, my wife is pretty awesome. I'm very grateful that she allows me to be in her life. She's fantastic. Let me just say that my wife encouraged me a long time before I decided to make the decision to do things on my own. She saw that, listen, you can't keep going through this 2.5, 3 year cycle. You get in, you do great work for the company, and all of a sudden they don't need you anymore because you checked all the boxes for them. And for them, it was just a check the box type of situation. Once they got their box checked, they realized they don't want you anymore. They'll offshore overseas all the work that you did. She says, you're smart enough to go and do things for yourself and build something great. And it took me some time to convince myself this was the right path because, after 8 years in the military and then 28 years in corporate America, you get into a rut. Really do get into a rut, and it's the security of not having to put all the undue stress of not knowing where the next day is going to bring you.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but I think once you get past that and you set a vision for yourself on what you want life to be like, you start putting plans together. And, I think a lot of folks who listen to podcasts like these and own businesses, I'm sure they've had some sort of training or schooling with like Tony Robbins, things like that. And it's really simple and it's not hard. It's find out what your why is and create goals around those and just get your butt in gear.
Yeah.
And the only person that's going to stop you is you.
And you did. I will say, just knowing you in the past year, you have got your butt in gear. When we first met I was like, okay, he's out on his own. He's doing his own company, and you have gotten connected and made some moves, and gotten connected with our group and gotten some really good advice. Me too, with Me Plus Ultra, and I think it's moving you ahead. But tell me a little bit about. Let's talk about some of the biggest challenges when, like, in week 1, week 2, in the first 30 days, when you are like, and I'm now the founder of Crisis Guard Pro.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge?
I think I mentioned it a few minutes ago. It's the fear factor, the unknown.
Yeah.
Because you have a safety net at a corporate job, and you know what the next day is going to bring you. Whereas, when you own your company, your own business, it's a whole different ballgame. You have to not only worry about the marketing aspects, but doing the work, getting the clients, understanding what the financing is, and how you pay your taxes differently than you would in the past. So it's not just one little thing, but wherever there's a will, there's a way to do it. A lot of us have gone and got a bachelor's degree and gone on to postgraduate degree, MBAs and stuff like that. I did put myself through, schooling for my GI Bill. And, but schooling doesn't really prepare you for reality. It gives you some grounding. What I think is, you had mentioned it, the Me Plus Ultra, surrounding yourself with fantastic support group.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to take advice from folks who've gone before you. That's called wisdom in most people's eyes. I think that if you're open to criticism, constructive criticism, and being afraid and taking it personal, you can strive in what your goals are. I think that sets us apart from a lot of folks. I think most successful business owners they welcome the opportunity to look at the gaps and defects that they have in their process to see things differently. And I think that's the biggest thing right there is don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid of what the answers might be. Sometimes you might not like it, but it's not because of they're trying to put you down. They're trying to help you.
Yeah.
When you make that switch in your mind, it makes things much easier.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what the business is doing now. Because you're kind of in, I don't know if you're in your stride yet or not, but what are some things you've got enough time in owning your own company where you're like, okay, I can look back and think, oh man, I should have done that different. If you're like me, that's a monthly thing. Every month I'm like, why did I do that? I'm thinking like, oh, I'm going to do that different next month when building another company. But what are some things that you would give advice to people that even you've learned since you started?
So I still struggle with this. Every night before I put my head down on my pillow, I said, did I do enough to make tomorrow a better opportunity for me? Mm-hmm. I'm really hard on myself. I've always been really hard on myself. So
most entrepreneurs are. I feel like that's why a lot of entrepreneurs, we have such a tolerance for feedback and criticism, because what we say to ourselves is not most people. I mean, yeah. So you have a high standard for what you expect of yourself and your business.
And I'm always looking to improve, regardless of how successful things are going to be. First off, I know what grounds me and in my everyday walk. So, my wife, my family are super important. My faith is super important. And knowing where everything comes from is probably the most critical thing to me. And if I'm making decisions that are not based upon those realities in my life, then something's probably going to crack.
Yeah.
But when I make a decision, I have to make good, solid decisions I'm going to be happy and comfortable and proud of the next day. I've learned to not compromise myself anymore. That was stressful for me, going into a corporate environment and doing things just because I had to do it, not because I wanted to. So now I get to make decisions because I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And I'm doing it long term to make not only success for the company, but also relationship-wise for the right reasons. I think that from what I've experienced so far at V Plus Ultra and the BBC is that everybody has been very genuine with me and very transparent on every aspect of our conversations. And they're always looking to do what's right. And that's what I appreciate the most. And I try to carry that through with all my customers and my clients.
I'm so glad you said that, because that when you're working for corporate, sometimes they don't do right by their customers. Yeah. And sometimes you don't have a say in it, or you try to have a say in it and it doesn't, it's going to happen anyways. Or not that they don't, no, I'm not saying they do wrong by their customers, but you don't have that touch point and that control over the customer experience in corporate like you do over being your own show.
Yeah. The question people need to ask themselves is, am I here just for the money? Because money is easy to make. Mm-hmm. Or I'm in this thing to build a legacy. Because along with that comes success in not only your business, but the money as well. So which one do you want? Do you want the quick hit money to solve an easy issue? Or do you want something that's going to be long-term and create a legacy for you and your family, if that's what you're really driving for?
Yeah.
When you look at those decisions, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. That's a great point. How did you kind of prepare yourself? I mean, emotionally, if financially, even spiritually, how did you prepare yourself to put in your notice, resign from your position? What did that look like?
That's a good question. I'm going to go back to the very first aspect of what made that decision for me. I would say that I am very much I disdain from nepotism. I think that to have success in the company, you need to have good people based upon your merits and what they bring to the table, not just because of who you know. Mm-hmm. When I see decisions being made because somebody knows somebody and it's a totally wrong decision, that was probably one of the driving factors. I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of the indecision, the death by committee, which you had mentioned. There's a lot of things. It's not just one thing, one little tiny thing. It's a accumulation of many, many things to the point where, you know what? If this is how it's done, I know I can do better. And that's what I had. I know I can do better than this.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's got to give you a boost of confidence going out on your own. I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think the scary part is the financial aspects of things.
Yeah.
That comfort feeling loss of knowing every 2 weeks there's going to be a paycheck in your.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, what they fail to realize is that whether you're doing a great job or not, you're still going to get that weekly or biweekly paycheck. What happens if you took that different approach in your own company and you did a fantastic job every single week? What your financial potential could be?
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of walking and meandering through life because you know that tomorrow's an easy day. Yeah, you owning your own company is never easy, but look at the upside of when you do and what you can bring to the table and how you can service people.
And I remember, it's so funny, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because I remember not breaking even in my company and being like, am I ever going to break even? Am I ever going to break even? And starting to kind of panic. And then one day, it wasn't in a day. It wasn't like I woke up and I was like, oh, but I just was like, maybe, okay. And then I got to the point where I was paying myself. And, I had a franchise and I fully expected not to break even for X amount of time. And I hit the goal and everything was fine. But the interesting thing is we used ADP for our payroll. And I'm going down the roster of all the employees, like when I used to do payroll, and I'm paying them their wages. I've got their hours times their hourly rate, and I'm plugging it in, and it gets to my name. And I'm like, I don't know how to pay myself. And I call the accountant, I go, what? She goes, well, I can help you, but the company was profitable. I think you could take X amount of dollars. Why don't you just put yourself on a salary and then just give yourself bonuses as you see? And I mean, I'm telling you, when I got the biggest high off being able to put that number in myself, it almost, because you're right, it was scary when I didn't have that every 2 weeks coming in steady, But when that happened, Joe, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And my motivation to drive that company as high as I could was just on fire.
Yeah.
And it was cool. It's so cool. And over time, I think that you get past that as you gain more control of your income. But you're right. That's so good. We were actually talking about that just the other day with Scott, because we're trying to drive Me Plus Ultra and grow our member base and things like that, and really do good work. And some days it's just kind of slow. I'm like, are we getting ahead? And all of a sudden there'll be a couple of days where big things happen, and then you're moving ahead, and then big things happen. So it's those big bumps that keep you moving forward when you're building a company. So tell me about, what's your plan? Where do you see Crisis Guard Pro going?
So, here's the cool thing about my vision for my company is that I don't have employees working for me. I have a cadre of individual consultants that we can, that we team up and we put forth different opportunities for consulting to different companies. So, like, for instance, say your company, you asked me to come in and do a risk assessment and do some work to help build resiliency at your company, to protect your systems, protect your data, making sure if you ever got a ransomware, you're able to get things back up online rather quickly. What I found out was that most companies don't want that a full-time person on the job. They want it on a fractional basis.
Mm-hmm.
Just, for instance, if you wanted to do in a security assessment, I have a person that I can assign, and do fractional work for you. And then once a week, whatever you decide, put them on a retainer, come in and make sure your health check is done on your systems. And that way, first off, they're on 1099. And then secondly, you're not paying a lot of taxes on them when it comes to employee taxes, benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I look at it as a full-time service on a fractional basis, and that's how I put forth the vision to potential customers. Listen, you don't want somebody that's a non-revenue generating role at your company. You want something that's revenue generating. But if it's an expense, let's do something fractional so you're not incurring this huge employee expense on a full-time basis, because there's no need for it. So to have that right communications and conversation with those people, it's a thought shift on how work is being done, and that's kind of how I've done it.
I like that. I mean, it's almost like because I think we've talked offline about this, about how people think of securing their systems. It's an afterthought. It's like when it happens, you're like, oh,
yeah,
yes, But if you had it a maintenance check, so that you have that security of mind, so that if something does happen, you get up and running faster. What do you say to people that are like, nah, I'll just take my chances?
I don't discourage that. The only thing I say to them, well, if things change, just give me a shot. I'm always here to help you. Because I see, when you talk expenses at a company, sometimes people get, sticker shock. And that's not what my goal is. My goal is to help small, medium-sized companies and sometimes large companies that I've worked at to look at things a little differently, look at opportunities to shift your funding from full-time, status of employee to fractional pieces. And that way it frees up budget for you, but it also gives you protection. And it also gives you an opportunity to take a lot of stress off your plate when it comes to aspects of cybersecurity, resiliency, whatever entails that. I'm working with one company on the healthcare side, and I'm putting together their processes and program so they can run it themselves, but I come back and work with their employees on a weekly basis, like maybe 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week. And it gives them an opportunity to self-care themselves and own it.
Yeah.
Instead of sloughing it off to somebody who, quite frankly, most consultants, they don't really look at customers the same way as I do. I know where the weaknesses are, and a lot of companies don't want to do these things, but if given an opportunity to have a conversation, it's very compelling what I can bring to the table.
Yeah. Especially now, because I know in some fields, you're losing, if your system goes down or there's a breach in security or something like that, you're losing money because you're down, you're dealing with that, and it's a cost to that.
Yeah.
From doing business. And I'm just, the thing that comes in my head is like a mom and pop shop trying to run their business. But when you think on a bigger scale, especially in healthcare with HIPAA and all of that and private data and private medical records, I would imagine there's some fines that come with that.
Oh, yeah. So not only the medical industry, healthcare industry, but most importantly, the financial industry, banking, heavily regulated. Certain things always have to be in place. You have to, when you go through an audit with the federal government or whatever that might be, it's incredible the amount of fines that you could potentially incur if certain controls aren't there.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Even small banks are at the mercy of the federal government nowadays. But you brought up a good thought was in July of this year, we had an outage to the Azure environment here in the Midwest. And Azure is the cloud-based computing from Microsoft. And then also on that same day, CrowdStrike went down, which is a endpoint security system environment that a lot of companies relied upon for helping protect their environments. So what really happened was when both companies started doing some automation on their systems, AI type stuff, they forgot the human side of actually doing their updates on a regular basis. So when the update went in, they just thought AI was going to take care of everything. So they had an outage on one of the control management systems for Azure. And then the automated update on CrowdStrike, everybody on CrowdStrike down. So can you imagine if you didn't have plans in place, small, medium-sized company, first off, are you still in business? Secondly, how much money did you lose? And how much were you fined because customers were they lost their minds because of your service being down. People don't think about it until after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine that the service, just hearing you talk, it almost feels like, and it feels to me like it's heading in like a mandated, like you have to do this. I remember when I had my small company, we had to do this with our back-end data processing. Like we used a company called WorldPay, and we took credit card payments through that. And they had this like mandated training audit thing we had to do every January, and I hated it. It was a pain in the butt, but it was basically to make sure that the credit card data and all that we were collecting was secure, and we were collecting it in a secure way. It was housed in a secure way because we had a lot of credit cards on file.
PCI.
Yeah. And that, as a small business owner, it's like, oh, I got to do this. But I knew that if it only takes one customer to come out and be like, hey, I think my data was breached or leaked, or it's not secure with your business. And depending on how far they want to take it, that could be really ugly. So cool beans. I'm so excited for you and kind of where the company's headed. I know you're working in a few different industries, but which kinds of companies are you working with or you want to work with?
So the skill set that I bring to the table is in the cadre of people I bring to the table. The types of clients we service in all of our skills, it's very agnostic. We don't focus on one type of industry. We could, however, the things that we have, every company who does cloud environment computing, any sort of computing that has PCI information, healthcare industry information, customer information, you're at the mercy of making sure that one, it's secured, and that if something were to happen to your systems, you can bring it up, almost instantaneously. So that's the customer. Do you work with computers? Do you have any cloud services that you work? Do you work with customers with personal information, credit card information, healthcare industry? That's everybody. And so my skill sets and the people I bring have worked and consulted to all these different industries, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, financial, small, medium-sized businesses. We've done consulting to all of the aspects of industry.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have to be a giant company.
Don't have to be.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. That's good to know. Because since my background comes in franchising, my brain goes to the franchisors, the brand owners, the people who own, all these different types of franchise brands. And there's so many now. There's so many franchise brands. Can you imagine like not having a handle on your cybersecurity and then you start selling franchises and you've got all these owners out all over the country running?
You spurred a thought, an ounce of prevention is always worth more than a pound of pain. And when you're working in the cyber arena, whether that's you're a business owner or just a person like me working at home, you forget to take care of the small things that mean a lot when something happens, whether that's
how did you say it? Say it again. A small ounce of
an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of pain.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, that should be your logo.
Yeah.
It should.
I should have a lot of logos, Casey.
You should. That should be over the Joe Pingtella. It should be all over it.
I think the one would be are you using your noodle in the right fashion today? If not, I have a plan for you.
I was going to give you, when you were talking earlier about kind of working with people that maybe aren't doing the right thing or not making great decisions. I was about to say somebody gave me advice a long time ago, like early. I was like my first job out of college. And he said, he was talking about doing the ethical thing, doing the right thing by customers. And I had a client and I was like, could we do this? I was young. I was like 21. I was kind of like, can I cut this corner? And he said, if you lay down with dogs, you'll wake up with fleas.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why that stuck with me just for all these years. So when you think about like, there's some stuff that comes up in business where you're like, it puts you in a situation, but you're like, always do the right thing, always. And even when it doesn't make you the most money and it doesn't, it's not the easiest, it always, in my experience, God willing, has come back to me tenfold. So any thoughts you want to say if there was a guy out there that's working under new leadership and he's like, this is a racket. These guys don't know, like I can do better than this. I'm going to go out on my own. What would you say to him?
First off, don't be afraid of believing in yourself. That's probably the most important thing is just don't be afraid to believe in yourself and your capabilities. Surround yourself with like-minded people who want success, not only for you, but for everybody around you. And then have a vision of what you want to do. Make sure you look at your goals every day and you live and breathe those goals and just go after it like a dog on a bone, because you're the only one holding yourself back. Nobody else is. And until you start believing in yourself, nobody else will believe in you. It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
Have the faith and belief in yourself that you're going to do great things. And then get your goals going. And every day you do something for each one of those goals that you have. Because if not, then you only have yourself to blame, nobody else.
Yeah.
Success is up to you, not to somebody else.
Love that. That's so good. So good. I'm so excited for you, Joe. And I just appreciate you being on my podcast. I know you're busy.
I'll I'll drop anything to help you out. You know that.
Yeah. And I've known you for less than a year, but you got a heart of gold, and the drive that you have to really make it and be vulnerable. I think that's why you and I get along so well, because we're both just like, we know what we're doing, but we're also very absorbing of other information. And so that's great. So I'm going to wrap us up here, and thank you for your time. You guys are listening to the No Clue Inc. podcast, Adventures in Running a Business for Beginners. I want to thank our guest today, Joe Pingtella, for his raw and honest opinion on getting started. And we wish him just much, much success in his Crisis Guard Pro. If you're thinking cybersecurity, and his quote of an ounce of prevention will save you a pound in pain, reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in touch with Joe for your small business, your big business, any industry. Sounds like he can help out. So thank you, Joe. Until next time, take care.
Take care. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the No Clue Inc. podcast, Adventures in Running a Business for Beginners. I hope you found some inspiration in today's episode. If you would, go like us and leave us a comment, send us questions. You can listen to this podcast on any of your platforms where you find your favorite podcast shows. Until next time, much love to you all. Have a great day.